A favourite quote from Des Malloy's Australian Panther adventure, The Big Sit, is his daughter Kitty's comment when he's planning one of his rides. What if nothing happens? One aspect of this obsession we share with fettling and riding old motorcycles is the certainty that something is sure to happen, even if that something is a memorable, no-incident ride. As in life, our error is in forgetting that everything which does happen, whether sought or foisted upon us, is a part of the rich tapestry which decorates our brief existence. Yes, we often get to choose how things pan out, but the times of departure and arrival that we set are subject to, as author Stephen Wyszynski pointed out, the rules of chaos. Given the multi-complex construction which is a motorcycle, it is hardly surprising that it fails occasionally to deliver on its greatest promise, forward motion. I'd bet my cross-point screwdriver that most of those present have experienced the heart-stopping moment when an engine's steady thrum is replaced by silence, or worse still, sudden loud noises followed by silence. Returning from a Panther National rally in the 1980s, the engine cut. One moment it was running, and the next moment it wasn't. I took the plug out and found 0 spark gap. Readjusted to a more acceptable 18 thou, the engine restarted instantly, ran for a few seconds, and died again, this time with no compression. A choke slide retaining ear on its Amel monoblock carburettor had fractured and entered the engine, defeating ignition, and then, heated and hammered, was welded firmly to the exhaust valve seat. A broken conrod also demanded an alternative means of return home. But these dramatic incidents are the exception. Most involuntary stops can be addressed at the roadside and fall into my category of gutter workshops. Here are a few exhibits from my black museum. A Norton's speedometer drive gearbox seized and turned with the wheel, winding its cable round the spindle and snapping it just before it towed the speedometer through the back of the headlight. A fibre dynamo drive gear lost all its teeth as I rode our outfit home across the fens at midnight, returning from a local Panther meeting. I rode all but lightless back to the nearest sanctuary, the POC President's sitting room couch, to await the sunrise. A burnt-out valve resulted in a dramatic loss of power, but still took us 10 miles home for a workshop engine strip. And the flat tyre being changed here was discovered the morning after we had towed a disabled Panther 20 or 30 miles to the rally on a Friday evening. That Solo is on the right, with its red primer fuel tank. Naturally, one of the rules of working on your bike at a rally is the helpful crowd which gathers. I've had in mind for some time a proper exploration of that moment, when the plans we make fail to predict their outcome. Our perfect, well-oiled world falls in an untidy heap, and all we have to put it back together are a few basic tools and our natural resilience, skills relevant to any and every aspect of life, from the sudden loss of a lifelong friend to the theft of a garden gnome. In late August 2024, the gods, Felon and Moore, provided a perfect example of a day spoiled, with the camera running. I'd looked the Panther over the previous day, finding only chain adjustment and lubrication requiring my attention. A few miles out we fill the tank and Angie hops out to pay. I've promised that I will provide a door in the sidecar if her agility is found wanting. Exactly how I'll do it is a mystery, but I have an angle grinder and some cutting discs. With temperatures predicted to rise into the mid-20s centigrade, messages were exchanged with the secretary of neighbouring vintage and classic club's Anglian section. With a coffee stop partway, we will join them at Hunstanton on the coast. Beyond the villages of Eastry and Coates, I settle the throttle for a comfortable trundle, between 45 and 50 miles an hour, over the road which locals call Long Gravel, though I've yet to find that name on any map. Just a tiny hold-up where we cross the March to Wisbeach Road, and here we take a favourite back double through Coldham and Friday Bridge to join the Downham Market Road, snaking along beside the old Nene River. The Panther is starting and running as well as ever with its rebuilt magneto and the new Wassell Copy concentric carburettor. Yes, I made the cardinal error of altering two variables at once, but more than 300 miles later, it seems I got away with it. Arriving at the garden centre exactly as planned at 11 a.m. for coffee and a modicum of self-congratulation, we will be at the seafront parking in good time to meet with the southern group for lunch. Interesting. I have the route in my head, so Angie gets a navigator's day off. The engine is a little reluctant to start after our coffee break, maybe not cool enough for choke, but too cold without. When she fires, I push from our parking spot and we're rolling again. If you have ridden old motorcycles, you must be familiar with that moment when, skimming blissfully over the tarmac, you experience the day's disintegration. Traffic hurtles past your gritty beachhead, and you're presented with a puzzle which won't wait for the comfort of a covered workbench. Indeed, until you solve it, you'll be stuck at the bottom of the snake which swallowed you. I'm going to let the camera tell our story, and maybe you will diagnose the problem before I do. Accurate diagnosis is the vital lever in a process of getting back on the road. And remember, this is not fault finding in a vacuum. I've offered my love a day at the seaside with fish and chips and ices. There's nothing like the threat of a broken promise to put you on your mettle. All is not well, but it wouldn't be wise to stop beside the busy A10 trunk road. I recall a left turn a mile or so ahead, if she'll keep running long enough. A tiny relief as, free of the main drag, I dive across to the nearest sanctuary where we gather our first clue.
What's up with her?
I don't know. Running fine.
And then not. I thought
Wouldn't.
you hadn't turned the petrol back on for a minute.
Yeah, no, I knew I had because I flooded her. And you know, you can't do that. I thought maybe I'd because we hadn't been there long enough, she was still a bit on the hot side and I'd overdone things with the flooding, but that's not what that is. That's really weird, just running such a dream. I'll whip the plug out and see if there's might be a plug, because it seemed to me like, you know, when I shut off she was ticking over all right.
Yeah.
So that seems like, you know, not, I don't know, carburation. Failure to fire. Angie is relaxed. We're alone here, and she has no need to exercise the role of interpreter, which she performs so well in public places. After years around panthers, she is adept at fielding questions which, given the circumstances, I would rather not. Is it a twin? Why, are there two pipes then? What's that little lever on the timing case? And so, did Triumph make panthers then? Free of that responsibility, she goes in search of roadside blackberries. Later in the day, a friend advises that one should never pick lay-by fruit from a point below the reach of a 6-foot man's urine stream.
Black, isn't it?
It's rather black. But the choke was off, that's not lost its cable or anything.
You know, if it was running too rich, but the question is why, unless something odd has happened here.
Helmet off, you can almost hear my mental cogs churning. No power on the open road, but immaculate tick-over on a closed throttle. I recognise the symptoms even before I put them into words, exciting the memory of a long-ago ride to a Panther National Rally. I'm on our old Model 120 and Busmar Devon sidecar, leading an outfit and solo Panther on the trip into Yorkshire. Earlier on, solo rider John suffered a slight misfire. Now we lose him, turning back to find his 1931 600 stopped at the perfect spot for a gutter workshop. A wide verge on a lightly trafficked road, and not a drain grid in sight. His engine ticks over, but it won't pull. Margaret, climbing from the Busmar Astral sidecar of hers and Brian's outfit, suggests checking the carburettor jet. John gives her a withering look, and with Brian's assistant continues dismantling the magneto, which he is sure is at fault. Only when this fails does he drop the carburettor float bowl to find that the main jet has fallen out. A whack on the ear from Margaret, and our journey resumes.
The only thing is, you know, it doesn't really make sense that a jet would drop out whilst we were sitting there, unless it just happened to fall out as I shut off, when of course you wouldn't notice. I'm going to have to take my sweatshirt off though. I think the jet's loose. I can feel it apparently moving. What that's done to those.
The jet wiggles like a loose tooth, but it's too soon for celebration. Diagnosis is one thing, cure quite a separate issue. To gain access with a spanner, I need to remove the float bowl, secured with a pair of cross-point screws on this modern wassail replacement.
This is where you find you've changed a component and you haven't got the tool as it takes to undo it. Yes, I'm going to have to strip off. I'm getting rather too warm now.
I managed to loosen one screw with pliers, but access to the other is restricted. I can grip it, but I can't turn it.
I've slackened them a bit. What can I use?
A loop of wire I create is far too soft, and I cast about, but find nothing useful in the lay-by detritus.
I've got it started, but they've got little spring washers.
A few moments of thought has me looking for a spare chain link.
Would make a
Yes!
key, really.
The pointy end of its clip snugs easily into the cross-point screws, and being spring steel is equal to the twisting force applied. My heart rate returns to normal, and I set to work.
There's a key.
Dropping the bowl clear, I see that the whole main jet holder has come loose in the body. Tightening it is the work of a moment, and I'm putting things back together when a car pulls up. The driver, Dave, saw us as he passed and came back to check that we were okay. Stout man. He lives nearby, has tools if we need them, and waits to see us on our way. With the fuel system drained, a restart takes a few kicks, but we're soon rolling again. We faced difficulties and prevailed.
Perhaps it's cool enough for a little tickle.
Been there a little while.
No. I'll put the plug lead back and yeah.
Makes all the difference.
Yeah. That was another thing I noticed, the plug was black. Yeah. Pure fuel going through, I think. Whether it's... Oh. Okay.
Avoiding the main coastal drag, we follow the charming minor roads of a route we sketched out a couple of years ago. Yes, we're running behind schedule, but that's no reason to spoil our enjoyment. A sharp left turn in Gayton here takes us over the top to Grimston. These are the delights of rural Norfolk, inclines rather than hills, on open roads punctuated by flinty villages, each with its ancient church. Open country beyond brings us to Hillington, where we join briefly the A148 Kings Lynn to Fakenham Road, peeling off onto the B1153 towards Great Bircham. Dropping into Snettisham, we encounter a tractor and trailer farm tour, only passing when we both put a wheel up the bank. Through the village, we join the busy coast road. but it's not that thick with traffic on a Wednesday. We're soon chugging along the seafront to park in the motorcycles section. I've never been challenged here on an outfit. Maybe a parking attendant would take pity on Angie if he saw me hand over a spanner to remove her offending vehicle. Rather late for the party, as we wander past one of the town's many fish and chip shops, Anglian Section's Secretary Martin leaps out. We join the group for a slightly delayed lunch, a walk along the seafront and a chat with interested parties at the Panther, answering a few questions before we set a course for home. I feel pretty good about our day. A grand ride, seaside fare, and a gutter workshop with a satisfying outcome. There's a line from the Tom Waits song, Take It With Me, which sums up the gutter workshop for me, even if it wasn't quite what Tom had in mind when he wrote it. All broken down by the side of the road, I was never more alive or alone.